wife gave me a list because once before I didn't invite the people that need to come up. Okay, first off, I'd like to bring up our Rastafarian, Mr. Tai Bennett. Come on up, Tai. My partner in crime and producer, Andy Meyers. Come on up, Andy. To introduce our two stars, John and Dave, Mr. Chase Williamson and Mr. Rob Mays.
Come on up, fellas.
And last but not least, in the house is the meat monster, Mr. Chezz Galliardoni. Come on up, Chezz.
So, I mean, I can start off with a couple questions. One, I wasn't familiar with the book until you mentioned it to me when we met up years ago. What attracted you to the book?
Well, was it a drug from another dimension, or was it the talking dog, or the monster made out of meat? There are so many things in the book. It was a very imaginative. It was writer David Wong. That's a pseudonym. His real name is Jason Pargin, and his first novel, if you can believe. And you got to give the guy credit. He created a new paradigm in self-publishing because he started publishing chapters of this story on the web a few years back, and pretty soon he had a full novel online, and something like 50,000 people had read it online, which was really intense. And it was picked up by a small market press. I saw it as that book, and then after that, it was St. Martin's took it out as a major hardcover. He's been very successful. And he has a sequel coming out called "This Book is Full of Spiders, Don't Touch It." So check that out.
It's an incredibly dense book, but there are some pages which you're able to adapt like almost word for word. Can you talk about the challenges? Because there's so much jam-packed into the book.
Well, it wasn't just the size. The book was about 350 pages, and maybe we could fit 95 pages into a movie, short enough so that an audience could tolerate it. The other problem we had was, there were unfilmable sections in the book, and I went out to the major Hollywood players, and none of them could see that it could be a movie. So I had to go back and do it the old-fashioned way, like my other films, and do it on a very tiny budget. And thank you, Andy, for helping me with that, because without this man,
and honestly, I mean, the strength of the film really is your discovery with the casting. Can you talk about how you chose these guys?
Well, they came in and they were both perfect for the role. And an interesting story, Chase Williamson had just graduated from University of Southern California and never been in any movie, even a YouTube project video or something like that. And on his first day of work, he got to do 8 pages of dialogue with the greatest living actor on the planet, Mr. Paul Giamatti. So Chase, why don't you tell us how you pulled that off?
It was kind of like being a super amateur athlete and then going to the Olympics. It was sort of like, you're sitting across the table from Paul Giamatti and you kind of just have to soak it in and step up and have fun with it, because I don't know if that'll ever happen again. So yeah, I don't know. It's hard to wrap my head around, definitely.
And Rob, maybe you could tell us about what it was like when you were offered the role and you read the script, and what did you think you were getting into?
Hey, yeah, it's pretty crazy. I mean, wow, I get nervous. Yeah, I mean, I read the script and I was immediately taken into a different world. And I mean, I keep telling the same story, but I'll tell it again because it like really had an impact on me. But I was like reading the script and I was making spaghetti, and like the noodles seemed to kind of like turn into like worms and snakes while I was cooking it, and the sauce became like blood, and I thought it was really cool. So it had like a really profound effect on me, and I didn't really know where the script was going. I read the book, and you know, I feel like so often like I watch TV or I watch a movie and I'm like, ah, wait, I know what's gonna happen next. There it is. Yeah, right. Yeah, there it is. But this, I had no idea. And like even today, I'm like sitting in the audience watching the movie, and I forget what's coming next. It's such a cool journey. At least I think so. I hope you do too.
How did you meet Paul Giamatti?
Well, I got an email from a fellow Midnight Madness director, Mr. Eli Roth, and he was shooting Hostel 2 in Eastern Europe. And, you know, as we know, Eli can be very enthusiastic, and sometimes it's hard to know if he's exaggerating or not. And he said, I just had, in this email it says, I just had a meal with Paul Giamatti, and he's your biggest fan, and he wants to work with you. And I thought maybe Eli was high or something. So I just ignored it, and then I saw an article where some reviewer had asked Paul Giamatti which director he wanted to work with, and he said my name. And so I tracked him down and had a meeting and talked with him. And then, you know, he's a really cool guy, and he really is into the genre arts, as I am, loves the genre, loves offbeat stuff. And, you know, I was looking at him and I thought, ooh, you would be great in the Bubba Hotep sequel that I was playing. And I talked to him about coming on board to play Elvis's manager, Colonel Tom Parker, and co-starring with Bruce Campbell. And he was a gigantic Evil Dead freak and was thrilled to play across with Bruce. And unfortunately, we couldn't get that movie put together. But a few years later, I came across this script and I saw that it had this role that I thought Paul could play, and it wouldn't require a whole lot of days from him. And he read it and said, do anything to help get it made. And so he actually came on with his partner, Dan Carey, to be an executive producer and help us get it made. So it's a really sweet story. He's really a decent, wonderful guy in person.
Do we have any questions from the audience? Yes.
It was, you know, it was in the script for, well, you want to...
Mall of the Dead, you asked me what Mall of the
where
Dead.
that location. You know, making a low-budget movie, it's impossible frequently to find what you need on the budget. I mean, we looked into renting a real mall, and it was, you know, $25,000 a day at just the minimum, and we'd have to dress it down and all of that. I think, Andy, we had brought on some guys who, our team was very talented, and for a little period we were talking about maybe building this as a set in our warehouse, and that was, you know, it would have been terrible. And there's this little service which actually works for location scouting called Craigslist. And we put an ad on Craigslist and said, does anybody know where there's an abandoned mall available? And this woman called up and turned us on to this mall that was maybe 10 miles from where we were shooting, that we had been overlooked and it was empty, and we were able to get in there for a rate. You know, it was kind of creepy. It might have been filled with mold and stuff like that, but the location was fantastic.
I guess we'll bang you out of there.
The question is that at one time Ron Perlman was attached to the Bubba Hotep sequel, which was titled Bubba Nosferatu, Curse of the She-Vampires. Once Bruce decided he was not going to participate, we started to think about other actors, and once again, Paul's a great guy, and he wrote a letter to Ron and told him about it, and Ron was really excited to try to take on the role. But at that point, funding had gotten shaky, and then Ron got a TV series, and it just, I don't know. It's interesting though, it feels just from this trip, a lot of people have been asking, I thought it was in the rearview mirror that maybe we'd never do that, because people keep asking about that, and so maybe we should all write an email to Bruce Campbell and ask him to throw it back out. Thanks for asking.
Yes, to the side. What scene do you wish you could have had from the book but weren't able to yet?
Well, you know, it wasn't just even size. There were simple things that just required massive time jumps. I mean, there was this one sequence where, in the book that I loved, where Dave went to sleep and then woke up the next morning, and this girl that he had been chasing was in bed with him. You know, I don't think he even could talk to her. And she's in bed and rolls over, and he got out of bed and looked in the mirror, and he had a goatee. And 6 months had passed, and he found the girl and was going to marry her or whatever. But I thought it was very clever, very inventive, but there was no way of fitting something like that into the timeline that we had. So, but there's a lot of really epic stuff and a lot of wonderful Lovecraftian monsters in the book, and we did what we could. Courtesy of Mr. Robert Kurtzman, who was the K of KNB, and a director in his own right, who not only did he build the entire Bubba Hotep mummy, but he created the meat monster. And I want to walk down here and ask Chezz, maybe you could tell us, this is Chezz's first movie, it's his first time at a film festival. And where did you come up with that idea that the meat monster, when he was on the phone, he would turn away from the boys?
It was all kind of a blur. At that point, I don't think, I wasn't very well hydrated, I was spent already. But I think you actually directed, I think you actually gave me that.
Oh, well, I'll take credit for it. Yes. That's how you get more jobs. I'd like to also bring in Tai into the mix, if we could, real quick. And maybe you could, well, first off, my first question, what happened to the dreadlocks? And two, how did you approach this role?
Dreadlocks. This wonderful costume designer, who also happens to be married to Don, got me a dread wig. And it was a really interesting coincidence because I had dreadlocks for about 12 years and I just cut them, I think, 6 months before the movie. And so Shelley Coscarelli said, how would you feel about having dreadlocks? I'm like, I'd be fine with that. And I showed her a picture, she said, wow, that's really great, do you still have that? I said, no, I don't. But in terms of getting into it, Don did such a great distillation of the book that just reading what was on the page really just inspired me, and I went, oh yeah, I got this. I know exactly who this guy is. And when we got on the set, I just got to play and have fun. And it was really fortunate for me because I don't remember if Don remembers, but the planes kept passing by. So we kept having to stop. So the more we did it, the more fun I had. And compliment to Chase, we did one take, and I go, oh, I better step up my game, otherwise no one's gonna even remember me, because this kid is incredible. One part Don, one part Chase, and a bunch of gratitude.
And there's an eager question in the balcony.
Okay, first of all, thanks for keeping the dong door.
Thanks for keeping the dong door.
You are so welcome. Oh, well, let me just say one thing on that note. This week, I was so terrified about this, we got an R rating with no cuts. Because Rob will tell you that we had to shoot several versions of it, because I've been through wars with the MPAA, with the spheres and the drilling. They always used to give me a lot of grief. And so I'm thinking, that if Rob is actually going to touch this member, we might get in trouble. So we shot it a lot of different ways. So some grab it, some he barely touch it, some he put his hand next to it. And we actually, he touched it, and the MPAA was good with it. But, thank you. But, anyway,
Metaphorically, wasn't the same act.